A long time ago, on a world where knowledge was all, stood in a desolate valley, there stood a grand old house, majestic and complex to the eye, a symphony of Edwardian-esque architecture fused with futuristic elements. Inside the house there was silence. Each room occupied with good old-fashioned books, all in no particular order, and of varying age and condition, but oddly ordered in their chaos. They filled each room and corridor, some piles touching the ceiling as if they were supporting the house itself. How fitting this would be if the books concerned the topic of architecture. The house was filled with almost all the knowledge of the known universe, except for one solitary room. Inside this room stood some books, however, contained to a single bookcase. Unlike the others, they were all well kept, preserved against age, hidden behind a thin layer of glass, locked away with the key stuck in the lock. The rest of the room itself was almost like bog-standard living quarters. A clothes rack containing what can be best described as a moth's leftovers, the food dispenser was nothing special, and the bed was certainly not in its best shape. However, there were still elements of the upper classes present. A leather-clad armchair facing a roaring fire, rather stereotypical of what we think a grand house would contain, but rather dangerous in this environment of wood and paper. And now, to the occupant. An old man sat in the chair, wearing moth-eaten clothing, matted black hair, and cracked spectacles. Whilst his outward appearance portrayed that of a stray, the look in his eyes betrayed him. This was a man of intelligence, a man perfectly suited to his environment, and king of all the knowledge in this grand house. And yet, in this world where knowledge was everything, where he was quite literally the richest individual, he was not content. For there was one piece of knowledge that always eluded him. What happens after death? Some of the books among him offered some suggestions, but they were all always conflicted, disproved, or just outright sounded ludicrous. So, after hours, days, years even, of careful thought, who knows how long it was considered for, the man decided to use all the knowledge at his disposal, even the forbidden parts locked away in his room, to summon the one being who could answer his question. Death. So, after enchanting the verses and preparing as guided by his books, death appeared to the occupant that night, a formless, featureless spirit that apparated calmly in front of the man. The man made his plea to death, to which death warned him in a toneless, calm voice that he may not like the answer. Yet the man persisted, so death obliged him. Death told the occupant that to know the knowledge he seeks, he must first destroy his haven of knowledge, set it alight so that no one may use it again, and that once this was done, death would appear again outside and tell the man how to seek it. With glee, the man ripped his blanket off his bed, dangled it into his fire, and led the burning rag out of the room, where he tossed it into a pile of books in an adjacent room, and then left the house, sat calmly on the ground, and waited for death to appear again. When his house was fully ablaze, death reappeared and told the man that the knowledge he sought was back inside the burning building, and that he should remain there until he sees death one last time, where it will reveal the knowledge that the man was chasing. So, after hesitating and composing himself, the man calmly stood up and walked peacefully into the inferno that was once his abode. And then The man awoke, standing. Surrounding him was a void of nothing. All around him, 360 degrees of nothing, except death, who stood calmly in front of him. The man was confused. Where was he? He thought to himself. Death then gave its reply. This is my answer to your question. Nothing. Nothing awaits all who perish, and in your greed to discover what no one knows, you have lost everything, only never to impart this one speck of knowledge to anyone, ever. And with that, death evaporated from view, leaving the once king of everything, a ruler of nothing.